Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Scott Alchevik. I'm with the NSCC recruitment team. Just going to share my screen here, give people a chance to jump into the meeting. I see some people coming in now. So welcome to today's webinar. We're going to focus on some programs down at our Center of Geographic Sciences in Lawrencetown, Nova Scotia. We're going to look at the Geographic Information Systems Technician program. We're going to take a look at GIS Cartography and Geovisualization, and then we're also going to take a look at surveying, which is kind of two programs, Surveying Technician and then Geomatics Engineering Technology. I've got a couple guests with us today. I've got Martha Bostwick from the Cartography program, and Mark Hébert is from the GIS Tech program. And a little bit later, Troy Green will be coming into the meeting to talk about some of the surveying programs. So we'll just hear from those folks a little bit later. I just want to welcome everybody and let you know that NSCC acknowledges we are in Mi'kma'ki, the unceded territory and ancestral homeland of the Mi'kmaq Nation. Our relationship is based on a series of peace and friendship treaties between the Mi'kmaq Nation and the Crown dating back to 1725. In Nova Scotia, we recognize that we are all treaty people. While we're presenting, there is a little question panel on the GoToWebinar control panel. You can put questions in there, and while Martha and Mark and Troy are presenting, I will keep an eye on that question panel, answer the questions that I can, and then if there are specific questions for the faculty members with us today, we can ask those throughout the presentation. If you have questions about an application you've already submitted or questions about study permit stuff, anything along those lines, please direct those to recruitment@nscc.ca. This webinar is to spotlight these particular programs, so we're really looking for questions specific to these programs, things that you might hear during the presentation that you need some clarification on, stuff like that. Anything else regarding applying to NSCC and things like that, the recruitment team would be happy to help with those. So recruitment@nscc.ca is the address there at the bottom. I'll also put that in the chat, and you can email us there. Give us a couple days to get back to you. I think I spelled that right. Yep. Okay. So the three programs, actually four programs, I guess, if you include the survey technician that we're looking at, are all delivered from our Center of Geographic Sciences, or what we like to call COGS. And that's located down here in the Annapolis Valley. You can see the yellow dot there indicating the location of COGS, and that's in the community of Lawrencetown, Nova Scotia, which is about a 10 and 15-minute drive to the Annapolis Valley campus, where a lot of student services and supports are also available to COGS students. So very beautiful part of the province, close to the Bay of Fundy, located right in the heart of the Annapolis Valley, a rural area, beautiful, and also lots of communities around, like Middleton and Bridgetown, Lawrencetown, and so on, with all of the amenities that you would expect. And COGS also has a residence that I'll mention at the end of the session. We've got some campus housing options down there as well. So if you want to know more, go to nscc.ca/explore NSCC. So I won't spend too much time in this slide. I just basically, the faculty will reiterate, our graduates from COGS have a lot of employment opportunities. We've got a really good reputation for offering top-notch education in geomatics. The programs are very specialized that respond to industry needs. Class sizes are generally small, and a lot of work experience, field experience, hands-on learning taking place at COGS. And you'll hear from our instructors, they come with a lot of real-world experience. They've got good connections to industry. There are applied research opportunities, and you are going to be working with state-of-the-art equipment that you find in the industry. So those are just a few reasons why you should think about COGS. The there are other programs there in the graduate certificate area. The ones we're going to be looking at this morning are, as I mentioned, Geographic Information Systems Technician. That's a certificate program. GIS Cartography and Geovisualization is a diploma. And then we're going to look at surveying, which is really two programs that cover that area: Survey Technician and then Geomatics Engineering Technology. So you can learn more about COGS and geomatics in general if you go to nscc.ca/geomatics. There's a little mini website there that's dedicated to COGS and the programs there. So these are just, like again, circled in red, you'll see the programs that we'll be talking about today. Just on this chart kind of shows you like some of the pathways. So GIS Tech, Survey Technician, you need high school to get into those programs. And then those certificates can set you up for some of the other programs. And I'll let the faculty talk about the sort of different pathways and stuff. Okay. So first program up on here is Geographic Information Systems Technician. So maybe I'll ask Mark to come back online and talk about this program. I will also, Mark, when you're ready, I'll make you presenter. But the first couple slides here is just a basic information slide about the program. So whenever you're ready to be presenter, just let me know.
Well, I think we can go now, I suppose. Okay. So I am an instructor in the Geographic Information Systems Technician program. I've been instructor here for, this will be coming up to my 15th year. So I've seen the program come and go in different forms, but last year we launched what we're offering now, which is the Geographic Information Systems Technician Certificate. So it's a one-year certificate. I'm just going to try to share my screen here. Can you see that okay?
Yeah, I can see that, yeah.
All right, so I just thought I mean, there's a list of courses that we have, which basically, I think it's on another slide that you're going to be showing. Is that correct, Scott?
Yeah, there's a program map after.
Yeah. So I won't focus on all those different courses, but I will just sort of show you some of the different, some of the work that the students will be doing and the end products, I guess. We are just about to go into our work experience. So I met with the students this morning, and many of them are all set up to go to offices around Nova Scotia. I have one that's gone up to Ontario, who's working in a forestry for Department of Natural Resources up there. So there's different offices that all those folks, after they've completed the year, are going to be doing what they call their work experience. So that's sort of the what we call applied learning. So at the end of the one-year program, you'll do an applied learning course, and of course, to get to that point, you're going to be doing a whole bunch of different things. So I just wanted to show you one of the students' portfolios from this year, who just to kind of give you an idea of some of the work that you might be doing in this program. It has a focus, of course, on mapping, right, and geographic information systems, which is the technology that we use to basically visualize and analyze and manage geographic or geospatial data. And obviously there's different ways we do that, but for visualization, we've got a number of different products that, for example, the base map is a good start in the first year GIS, in the first semester GIS course, right? So producing a map that basically, you gather data, you assemble it, you manage it, and then you present it in this form. It's a map, a paper map. But of course, the technology has changed over the years, so it could be a map, but it could be also online. So I'm just seeing if I have an example of an online map in here. I think this might be, where are we here? Maybe I don't see one in here, but anyway, or we might present it online in the form of what we call a story map or that type of thing. I'm sure Martha could highlight some of that as well if she's got an example of one there. But anyway, you'll be using a wide variety of different technologies. It's not just GIS. There's AutoCAD, and then the GIS world. There would be working with open source as well as Esri, or that's one of the software packages that we use. And then there's a focus on data management, so working with databases, and of course, like I said, other technology. So it's sort of a little bit of everything. So you're somewhat of a generalist whenever you get out of the program. So there's a remote sensing course, for example. So you'll be using remote sensing technology to be able to do that and answer questions, geospatial questions, using that type of technology. So anyway, just kind of a high-end overview, but or this is a project that one of the students worked on this year, where they were looking for the potential sites to support energy, right? So they would have performed some overlay analysis using different criteria. Has to be within a certain distance of a road, has to be within a certain distance of an existing transmission line, for example. And then from there, we try to figure out where's the best place, for example, to put in. I think they're using to do it a wind farm for this one. I didn't teach this course, but that's the type of questions that you would be looking at trying to answer and support those sectors that might be into that. So when you come out of this program, you may not just get a job working in one area. I know last year we had students that worked with the Department of Transportation. Then they went off and worked with the Department of Service Nova Scotia, where they supported the 911 system. And we've got other students that have gone off, like I said, worked off in the forestry sector. It is a new program. The fact this is only the second year that it's ran, but students are getting jobs, in those types of those places. So I think there's lots of opportunity. In terms of the pathways, Scott mentioned, this program would make you eligible to take the 2-year diploma, which Martha's going to focus on in cartography. But we do have other students that leave our program and take other programs, I guess, if they so choose to. But yeah, so is that anything else, Scott, you think I should talk about, or is that good enough?
Well, yeah, just this is a certificate program, so potentially students coming right out of high school might consider this, but maybe they, just for the sake of definition, maybe just talk a little bit about geographic information systems in general, or what geospatial data is, just to someone uninitiated into the this world.
Okay, well, Geographic Information Systems is a technology that's been around since the late 1970s. It evolved from the need to basically take and capture data that has some sort of geographic element to it, right? So if it has a coordinate, if we can somehow put it on a map, which really is, I would say, 90% of the data that's out there, then this GIS was designed to basically be able to capture that data, store it, and then be able to do something with it, which is where the analytical part comes from. So the technology basically allows you to take different layers of information. So for example, you might have roads, right, that you would see maybe on a hard copy map. Well, we can store that digitally in our GIS database. So it's its own sort of model or format that the software will be able to read in and be able to display correctly. So if you've gone out with your phone and you've used Google Maps, that's not necessarily a GIS, but it's probably GIS in the background that's working to build that mapping system, right? So, but in this industry, you would be the person in the background that would be maybe creating the data that would support things like Google Maps, and that type of thing.
Okay, and what are some of the key differences between survey technician and GIS technician?
Well, survey technician, we always talk about it at different scales. If you're looking at something very detailed, you want sub-meter accuracy. You need to know precisely where is that, the position of that bridge, or that property boundary, or whatnot. That's when surveyors would come into play. They are using a different type of technology. They may use GIS, but for the most part, they're more interested in the positioning of those coordinates so that they're more accurate, right? Or they're at a higher precision than what we might be interested in, depending on, well, it depends on what industry it is, but something for us might be 5 meters is okay to be within an accuracy of 5 meters. But with surveyors, they're going to be looking for something within sub-meter, right? So centimeter accuracy. So they're doing more field work. They're doing more out in the ground, collecting data, primary data, which is what we call normally for us. We might be collecting primary data, or our data. It's not going to be as accurate, but we might do something with the data once it's already been collected in the GIS program.
So for example, like recently I had a piece of land surveyed. So like a survey technician would come out and make those measurements.
Yep.
And then hand that off to a GIS technician that would then put it into, say, a map that the municipality would use to indicate.
Possibly. The survey would probably draw up a plan using AutoCAD, and then that data would then go to the Registry of Deeds, where they would then map it in a GIS. So so it would get transferred over into another system once and map it there. So, and that's where the GIS person would come into play.
Awesome. Yeah, great, Mark. Well, thanks for that overview. And again, like you said, the employment options are pretty good. And this is a program for anybody coming out of high school, or even anybody who's been out of high school for a while. A high school diploma is required for admissions. Yeah, hopefully this is a program that might spark somebody's interest. All right, I'll take presentation control back, and we will hand it off to Martha next, if I can. So thanks, Mark.
Hi.
Hi, Martha. I'm just going to move this window out of the way, and this is just that program map that Mark had covered. So we'll just, you can just see that it is a one-year program. Our years are divided into semesters. So we have a first semester, which is September to December. Second semester is January to the end of April. And then sort of a third or spring semester is April until, I think, May or June, and then graduation. So usually around this third semester is when people are off doing their work placements and things like that. So next program here is Martha's program, GIS, Cartography and Geovisualization. So basically this is all about, oh, somebody's trying to call me, 1 second. I'm just gonna make you presenter here, Martha. You can show your screen there. So.
Okay. So I hope can you see my presentation on screen now, Scott?
I can, yeah.
Okay, great. So as Scott mentioned, I'm Martha Bostwick. I'm one of the faculty members in the Cartography, GIS, and GIS, Cartography and Geovisualization program. Bit of a mouthful for that name of that program, so we just tend to call it CART as a short form there. Currently, my co-faculty is Jill. She's not on the call today, though. So what we are, similar technologies that Mark was talking about with GIS, but we, in the cartography program, sort of combine the science and the technology portions of the GIS along with the arts and graphics side of things. So we're more focused on how we're actually going to communicate the data that we have, this geospatial data that's been collected in some way. Once we analyze it and process the data, we're more concerned with how the end user gets to visualize it, or how they're actually seeing the data in the end. I like to tell people that really your data is no good if the end user can't understand it or has no way to visualize it. Nobody's getting a lot of information out of reading, an Excel table full of just rows and rows of hundreds of rows of numbers. But to have that analyzed and visualized into a map or an on-screen visualization of some sort is the best way to have the end user read your product. So that's what we're focused on in this program. Scott had mentioned at the beginning that COGS is in Lawrencetown in the Annapolis Valley. That is where I'm based, out of the COGS campus. This program, though, is online. So you do not have to be in the Valley. You don't have to be in Nova Scotia. You can take this from the comfort of your own home, wherever you happen to live. It's a one-year diploma. We do have scheduled class times, though. So typically classes are between 8:30 and 3:30 Atlantic Standard Time. So if you're a few time zones away, you may have to have a bit of a different working schedule to meet our class times. And I'm not going to read more on this slide because Scott already mentioned that we typically have 3 terms, fall, winter, and spring. Now in our program, we've got it broken up a little differently than some of the others in the school here. We have fall A and fall B. So instead of going straight from September through to December with one set of courses, we spend September and October with 4 sort of introductory classes, getting you really started with the basics. And then we move on in November, December with the fall B set of classes. And then same thing for winter, January, February, we have some classes. And then March, April, we have the second set. And in our spring, we have our CART lab, which is our work experience component of the course. Now, I'm not going to go through what each of the courses means in particular, but these are what the courses are. So as I said, in the fall semester here, it's really the hands-on getting into the theory behind what the technology is, and really hands-on basics, sort of that introductory level. So if you have no real background in GIS or graphic software or programming, we cover those basics and get you a good foundation right off the start in the fall. And then we just keep expanding on those basic principles from there throughout the rest of the term. I wasn't going to show a portfolio website like Mark did, but I do have a few projects interspersed throughout my slides here on different things students have worked on over the years. So this project here was a project that a student worked on for a client a few years ago now, where he worked with this Nova Scotia Salmon Association to do an analysis of I guess acid rain in the catchment identification area for this region of Nova Scotia. And not only did he work with gathering the data and working with the client to understand what the data meant, his main focus was the visualization of what the acid rain project was doing. In addition to this print-based map, this is a large wall poster that was created. There's also a web-based component that goes with this project that I don't have access to any longer. So there is a digital interactive web map that goes along with this print-based product.
I have a question, Martha.
Sure.
So that map that we just looked at, like the sort of the color and the layout and all of the decisions that go into that, is that something that the students learn?
Sure.
Okay.
If I go back to this slide on what the course details are, map design and geovisualization 1 is where we start learning about that. So we get into color theory, typography, principles of page layout, a lot of the same things that you would get into with the beginnings of a graphic design program or any type of an art program. You know, a lot of the same principles apply for, you know, photography or graphic design of any kind, or even marketing, but just how colors work together and how type best enhances the data on the map, and how people's eyes follow a page. So the best place to put your titles in your text bars and whatever. So we do start that in this map design and GeoVis 1, and then carry on with further instruction in fall B for map design and GeoVis part 2. There's some of the basics of cartographic theory that we get into in the course.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, so what are we going to learn in this program? We data visualizations, maps, whether we talk about print maps or online maps, whether they're two-dimensional, standard, you know, your basic paper type map that you see all over the place, or whether we're getting into more of a 3D visualization aspect and interactive maps for your phone or any type of mobile application. We're constantly redeveloping the program. This has actually just been the first year that we've run it in this iteration. We're just finishing it up now, where we completely went through the old 2-year program and redesigned it and overhauled it for a more modern world, where we have these online interactive mobile devices all the time, and we want to see interactive visualizations now, while keeping, you know, we do print work still too, because that is a very large component of map making still. So we've redeveloped the program with the newest technologies that are available, and we're constantly working to keep up to date with modern technology, because new software is being built every day, pretty much, or the existing software is evolving and expanding. So we want to make sure that we're right front end in tech, so that our graduates have the best opportunities for employment as possible. So that's something we work on and are pretty dedicated to keeping current as the tech available that we use. So yeah, developing 3D visualizations using Carto design, typography, symbolization. This is just a sample of a map that was created in a program last year. It's a web map. It's interactive. It was used using a tool called Carto, and with a Postgres database and customized widgets. So those terms may not mean a thing to you right now, but by midway through next year, you'll understand what I'm talking about. We focus on worker integrated learning so that you have job ready skills. The whole point, I think, of our program, or any of the programs at NSCC, is to get you employed, and to make you employed in a field that you're happy in and able to be successful in. So we try and integrate job ready skills in pretty much every project that we do. We try and make any project work mimic real life examples of things that you might actually have to do in the workforce. We have dedicated clients and project work that we work on with specific real life clients every year, whether that's in part of the winter semester or throughout our spring semester, our CART lab work term. We focus on time management, project management, portfolio development. We want to get you employed. That's our main goal here. To that end, these are a few of our recent employers of our graduates. Now, as I said, this is the first year. We're just finishing up the first year of this new iteration of the cartography program. But COGS has had a cartography program of some sort for, you know, over 30, I think almost 40 years now. So, as I said, we just keep evolving it for the times. Whatever the modern technology is, we adapt the program to meet that. So, in the last few years, these are some of the people that have employed COGS graduates, anywhere from government at municipal, provincial, or federal level, surveying and engineering companies, we higher ed, so different universities or colleges have employed our grads, nonprofits, private companies, public companies, wide range of employment for our grads, which is really nice to see. We keep connected to industry. We find it, the faculty in the program, we find it really, really important to network within our industry. Cartography and GIS in general is a bit of a small network of people, small focused network. You're going to make a lot of friends throughout the program and throughout the community if you stay in this career for a while, and it's important to stay integrated. So because of that, we stay involved in a number of professional organizations and actively participate in these professional organizations all the time, which I think only benefits the program, because we hear about new tech or what other programs are doing or things that are being taught or we're involved. We know people in the software, in the development who makes, the people behind the software, we get to know them sometimes. And you hear about the new tech that's out there and learn to adapt your course and your materials based on what's available. So find it very, very important to keep involved both with industry partners and with professional associations. For some reason, can you guys still see my slideshow? My screen's just changed up.
Yep.
Okay, because right now my webinar screen is right in the middle of my slideshow, but I don't know what happened there.
I see hardware requirements.
Okay, good. Yeah, well, I'll just work around it then, but for some reason my slideshow is now hiding in the background on my screen. So because it is an online program, you're not going to be in the building here. You're working out of your own home or your own situation, wherever you may be. So you do have to have a decent computer at home. We recommend, these numbers are from last year. I haven't seen the newest update released by the college for this incoming year of students. So this is from last year's website. But we do recommend, in order to run the software that we use in the program, you have to have at least this performance level of a computer. So an i7 processor, 512 SSD, and 16 megabytes of RAM. Just some of the software will not run or will not run well on anything less than that. So we want to make sure going in ahead for this program that that you need a pretty decent computer to work with. High performance computer is only going to benefit you, make things speedier, work faster, more, software's not going to crash as much, that type of thing. So we just like to make people aware of that. Additional hardware.
Martha, I noticed you said PC only, so
yes,
for anybody wanting Macs are appropriate, probably not, huh?
We do not support using Macs in this program. So when we have you at the very first day of classes or the second day of classes, when we have you installing a bunch of software onto your machine, there is some software that does not work on a Mac. I do know a couple people who have tried using Macs using like a PC, like Boot Camp or Parallels or something that have a PC interface loaded in, and it has worked okay, but we in our IT department cannot offer support for that if things go wrong. So it is really, really highly recommended that it is Windows-based PC software or computer.
Okay.
Additional hardware, we really highly recommend a second computer monitor for any type of online classes. It's just really easy to see when we're demoing a lab, one screen in front of you, you can watch the demo, your second screen, you can have your own software up practicing along. It just makes your life a whole lot easier. You're gonna need a mouse. Most laptops I know nowadays have the trackpad, but that just doesn't cut it for GIS or cartography work. So you just have to be careful of that. So just a couple of things. Yeah, a webcam, most computers have them nowadays, but if not, you might want to include one of those. And external hard drives are always good for backing things up. Just a couple things to finish off here. As I said, we like to keep involved in professional organizations and industry. Well, we have our students enter contests all the time for their maps. And last year we had 2 of our students tied for first place with the CAGIS student mapping competition, which is the Cartography and GIS Society. It's an American-based organization for cartography and GIS professionals. So this is one of the maps that was tied for first place in the Arthur Robinson print map. And then this was the second map that was tied for first place, both of our students. I did just hear news a couple of days ago, so I don't have content or slides for it yet, but one of our students this year got the runner-up position in the competition. This map also, I believe, won runner-up in a NSCC mapping competition and maybe the Canadian Cartographic Association. And this is a snippet of a map that came in runner-up in the NSCC map competition and the Canadian Cartographic competition. It did win first place, and it got represented internationally at the International Cartographic Association conference last year. So we do have a good history of student award winners, which is really nice to see out of a small school. We typically do compete very, very well with the larger university cartography programs that have students at the master's level that we're in competition with at these programs. So it's just a sign that we've put together a pretty decent program over the years. If you want to contact me directly with any questions about the GIS Cartography and Geovisualization program, I'd be more than happy to answer some emails. My contact information's on screen there, and maybe Scott can throw it into the chat too, just in case. But it's just my name, Martha Bostwick at nscc.ca. And then generalized questions either go to recruitment or admissions. I guess if there's any questions, Scott can forward them on to me, but otherwise,
one question, Martha. You mentioned CartLab. Like, what would be some examples of what are students doing this spring for CartLab?
Okay. We're actually just starting CartLab tomorrow. It's our spring term here. That's a work experience, our version of the work experience. So rather than having students going out and finding a place to work at for the next 5 weeks, like Mark mentioned the GIS tech students do and some of the other programs do, instead we run an in-house cartography company, essentially, where we have clients come to us that need mapping done. So it's mimicking a real world business, whereas the students are now for the next month of May, or the next 5 weeks, I guess, are acting as the cartographers for a business, and I would be the project manager in this case. And we have a number of projects we're working on this year. We have some students are going to be working on what's called the Nova Scotia Science Atlas, which is an online atlas with some interactive mapping in it that we're working to expand on and overhaul the maps in it, and then the content overall. So that's going to be a multi-year project. We're just getting started on it right now. We've also got the municipality of Digby needs some mapping done, so they want some wall maps created for them. Sorry, no, that's a nonprofit that wants maps made of the municipality of Digby. I misspoke there. So we're going to be working on that. I've got a couple small clients that need maps made to go in academic journals that they're publishing their an article in an academic journal, and they need maps made for that. One, not sure if it's on hold or not because the author can't get her resources together, but if she gets them together in the month of May, we're going to be making a couple maps for a book on something about the geography of dance. I haven't actually seen the contents of the book yet, but that's how it was described to me. It is something to do with dance in Australia. So wide variety of projects. What else do we have on the go? Oh, we're going to do a little bit of data collection. So those people that are local to the area, we're going to meet up and do some data collection for a historic cemetery down on the South Shore of Nova Scotia. And then we're going to map the cemetery for the cemetery board. And I feel like I'm missing a large project here.
That's a pretty good selection. It's
yeah, it's a really wide variety of work this year. It's ranging from print maps to digital maps and interactive digital components.
Practical maps that help guide decisions for the nonprofit, for example, and then ones that tell stories like the geography of dance.
Yes. Yeah. The other one was the Nova Scotia Health Authority. We've been working with them. One of our students has been working with them for a client project, and they just didn't have the time to get all the mapping done that Nova Scotia Health wanted. So we're going to be working with them potentially to map, help them find indicators for where their resources should be distributed for helping kids in schools get funding for breakfast programs and things like that, because they try where the need is the greatest. So we're going to be analyzing a bunch of factors about the population of Nova Scotia for school children, their poverty levels and accessibility to care and health care and whatnot, and analyzing that in relation to the school districts and the school boards and whatnot to find out which schools need the most help for their programs. So that's some really,
That's
I find that to be really important work. We're getting food into the mouths of little kids. So I think that's important work to do. So we've got that on the go also.
Yeah, that's great. A good connection between how resources can be deployed in the best way for something important like nutrition for children. Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of people can look at the data and figure that out. But when you're trying to convince people to give you money for something, like Nova Scotia Health is trying to do, it's always good to have a visualization of this, to be able to see the map. So people can actually, see with their own two eyes where the need is, rather than just, reading in a paragraph that X school needs money for whatever reason. Visualizations always help your cause if they're done well. And that's what we want to teach people to do, is show the data and make a convincing argument, for whatever the purpose of the map is.
Excellent. Thanks, Martha. There is, I do see one question. What is the pathway into the cartography program? So I'm just going to review the admission requirements. You do need a certificate, diploma, or undergraduate degree in a related field of study, such as archaeology, geography, geographic information system. So that could be that GIS technician certificate program. It could be an undergraduate degree in geography, forestry, geology, resource management, urban planning, science, engineering, computer science, marketing, fine arts, graphic design, commerce, economics, or business administration. So a wide variety of backgrounds that get into this program.
Pretty much. Excuse me. Yeah, you do need to have some kind of a certificate, like degree, diploma of some sort to get in. It's not a direct entry from high school program. Just for example, some of the people that we had in the program this past year, we had somebody from Environment and Natural Resources. They had a diploma in that. We had a Master of Applied Science who'd been working with Department of Fisheries and Oceans and wanted a career change. Archaeology and IT. Somebody with a geography degree from St. Mary's. Somebody that had worked for the Coast Guard.
Quick question that popped in: would electronics engineering technician be something that could be looked at?
I'm not 100% sure on exactly what the background is on that. That might be something you want to email me about and tell me a bit about what. I'm a little I don't know what exactly that means, unfortunately. But
it is a program that we offer, electronics engineering, and you do end up with a certificate or diploma, I think. But yeah, that maybe email.
Yeah, just shoot me an email and we can chat about it.
Okay, awesome. I saw Troy pop up there for a second, so maybe we should give him the last 15 minutes to talk about the survey programs. So
that's great. I will hang up now. Nice talking to you all.
Yeah, I'll make myself presenter again. Oops. Hi, Troy.
Hey, Scott. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I'm gonna fast forward. Martha, there's the program map for Martha's program. So now we're onto those couple programs that are in the survey realm. So I'll hand it off to you, Troy, and when you want me to advance the slides, just let me know.
Great, thank you. Well, welcome everyone. So I'm here to kind of talk about our survey programs here at COGS. Really, the COGS was kind of founded on these survey programs way back in the early days, sort of in the mid 1900s. So the Center of Geographic Sciences sort of grew from a land survey institute, and we've expanded to a number of geomatics programs. And probably one thing that I probably should mention, if it hasn't been mentioned already, is that somewhere in the slide deck it talks about survey, mapping, and geomatics. Well, geomatics is surveying and mapping. Just try to kind of keep a hold of the surveying and mapping side of things, because most people sort of don't understand the geomatics term until they're kind of maybe in it. So the survey programs, really we do focus on surveying and mapping, probably more so on the surveying side and a little less on the mapping side. So when you've listened to Mark and Martha's presentations, we do end up in the mapping side, but we maybe don't venture so heavily into these thematic maps and presentation, but we certainly do create survey plans. It's a big part of our industry, and we do dabble in that middle piece with GIS and manipulating data, but again, not as a full-time sort of career or job. We do use that tool sometimes. A lot of our work is kind of in the field, and the collecting of data, I would say, is probably where we spend well over 50% of our time. So at COGS, we have traditionally they probably were a year 1 and a year 2 program. So survey technician is like this first year, and then it's our feeder into our Geomatics Engineering Technology program, which is really year 2. But they're separate programs. You get a certificate after a survey technician, which is great. As you sort of step through these different levels of COGS, right, you pick up this credential, which is good because after year 1, you're fully employable. Actually, at Christmas time in year 1, you're employable. The demand is incredibly high right now in this industry. Right now, I would say every one of our first-year students had at least one job offer, or geomatics engineering technologists. They've all had 2 or 3 offers and could have more. The demand is incredibly high right now in the industry. So in the geomatics industry in general, the opportunity it's incredible, actually. So you'll definitely, I wouldn't say guaranteed a job, but pretty much there is a lot of opportunity. Sort of the limiting thing, I think, probably for you folks would be just where you want to live. It might not be in your hometown. Definitely in Nova Scotia, there's opportunity. If I wanted to move to Ontario, I could find a job in a minute. So it seems to be the new Alberta, although Alberta is kind of taking off as well again. So anyways, we have these 2 programs. The survey technician sort of sets you up to be an assistant. Typically in a field crew, there's 2 people. Usually the technician is the assistant, the helper, and the geomatics engineering technologist. Basically, they sort of lead the crew. They're the one who kind of makes the final decision. So that's really sort of how this thing is set up. A survey technician can certainly, they don't have to come back for a second year. It's a more controlled environment. A survey technician can advance to the party chief or the crew lead, through experience. But coming in for the second year, it kind of sets you up to really, when you leave here, what you hear people say in industry is you hit the ground running. You contribute right away. So you really your stuff. So an interesting thing too about sort of the surveying profession and getting this accreditation is you come here after SUTN and get a job, full-time job. You can come back if you choose. You get another diploma, right? A GETG diploma. You have the ability to kind of step into these other programs that have been mentioned earlier. There are other programs here at the Center of Geographic Sciences. You qualify to be input into those programs. We have agreements with universities to become and get your degree. You can get a Bachelor of Science in Engineering with a focus on geomatics, and get another geographic diploma, which is another full-year diploma. They kind of gear you up towards becoming a licensed land surveyor. So to subdivide land in anywhere in Canada, you have to be a licensed land surveyor, which means you have to go through a series of examinations or certain programs to become licensed, to become a professional land surveyor. And at the same time, you can actually work towards, if you follow the BSc in engineering, you can you can become a professional engineer. So different qualifications to sort of do different types of work. So really, that's kind of where these survey programs can land you, I guess, in the industry. Scott, you can move ahead to the slide. That would be great.
Yeah, just before I do, Troy, there is a question here from somebody listening. I'm currently working as a survey assistant. Would I be able to take the geomatics engineering course without taking the survey technician program?
It really kind of all depends upon your level of experience. Typically, you'd have to kind of meet the criteria of the survey technician, and so really there's a lot is a strong word. You learn some of the theory, the basic theories in SUTN. So which we've had people come in a similar sort of thing and say, I wanted to get into GETG, but you made me take SUTN, and they've had work experience, thinking that they kind of maybe know a lot. Well, what we find is a lot of those folks, they say, oh yeah, well, no, I kind of really didn't know that. I really appreciate the fact that I came and was, I took the SUTN program, and then sort of seen, that there is more behind the stuff than maybe what the typical assistant would know in the field. So it really kind of depends upon what level of experience you have. It's pretty rare to just have work experience to sort of bypass SUTN and get into GETG. Usually there's some sort of level of education that would kind of go along with that, or training. So.
And I'll just add to that, if you are coming, to NSCC with some previous education or experience, once you're admitted into a program, you can explore a process for recognizing prior learning. So maybe to the person that asked that question, you could explore the survey technician program, and once you're in that, you might be able to like transfer a couple credits or challenge for some credits on some of the things. But like Troy is saying, I think there's a lot to learn in that survey technician program that some people might not be aware of, and are thankful for learning that before moving on to the Geomatics Engineering Tech program.
I would say that really, when you do actually come and take the second course in GETG, that the expectation is there that you have that knowledge. So you can kind of get left behind or lost in it all if you don't have that. So I think it's really important to have that basic theory behind sort of before you come into the second year.
Yeah. Well, what I'll say finally to that person asking the question, and thanks for that question, is maybe get in touch with myself at recruitment, or Troy, if you don't mind, I can put your email up there.
100%, please do.
Okay, so there's Troy, and then again, if Troy Green with an E at nscc.ca. So it's in the chat there. Okay, I'll go on to the next slide here. We're going to go a little bit over, but that's fine. So I can skip past these slides and get to this is just a basic slide on survey tech. So you need high school to get into that program. And then for geomatics engineering, you need the survey technician or equivalent training or experience, which we kind of just discussed. So, and for international students listening, you'd have to submit your official post-secondary documents so we can assess those. But I guess, Troy, really probably the most common pathway is that survey tech course into the geomatics engineering. Yeah.
I would say well over 95% of the people in GETG come from our survey technician program. We do have agreements with the military. They easily bring someone down, but of course they've had experience and training in their level, so that's kind of why they qualified to jump into GETG. So, really this sort of set of slide, or this slide really is kind of like why you would sort of choose surveying. So typically most people would say if you like math and outdoors, that sort of seems to be it. I think it's a little bit more than that. I think you really have to have an aptitude for technology or an appreciation for it. I'm sure based on everything you've seen or everything you know nowadays, right? It's sort of fronted on this electronics, this high-end technology stuff. Well, that is our thing now. We're not just the person that maybe a lot of people sort of equate the surveyor to the person looking through some sort of instrument alongside the highway. Our tool set is kind of expanded beyond that, where, you know, we're kind of using GPS and to a really precise level, using LiDAR and lasers and drones. This is the image here it's a couple of our survey students or GETG students operating a drone for one of their projects that they're undertaking. It was basically last month. So, and using robotics and total stations. So the math piece, it is a big piece. It's the part that kind of gets you through the survey technician and understanding the theories, and the math part, it's applied, but really you kind of Scott alluded to the fact you needed a high school diploma to get in. The math is the equivalent of grade 11 trigonometry and some algebra. So not super heavy, but that would sort of the qualifications we're looking for. And although we do work outside, I think the thing is with in the surveying side, more so in the technologist level, when they do leave here, they're the ones who are going to solve that problem. They're the ones who lead the crew. So basically you'll get a packet and say, we need to have this done. The surveyor arrives on site, assesses the lay of the land, what obstacles they have to face, understanding sort of the accuracies and the final product. And then they start pulling out the tools that they need to kind of capture the data. And then they'll be the ones who kind of take it back to the office and process it and then create these final plans. So again, a lot of that involves is using of electronics and equipment and computer systems. So a lot of hands-on, it's all hands-on. And as I said before, that, you know, why you want to take surveying, you really, if you're that adventurous type who likes solving problems and doesn't really have this, you know, a problem with the electronics and kind of the math is kind of a fallback sort of thing. A lot of that stuff now is done on these electronic devices. Then if that's your thing, then surveying is definitely your career. I always kind of found it exciting when I did it, that almost everywhere I went, really, I was probably somewhere that nobody else had been before, and every job was different. It was never the same. It was never cookie cutter. I didn't sit down at the cubicle and just start punching numbers in, and it all was different. It all sort of took a different approach each job. So like I said, there's loads of opportunity here. Even if you're not successful, there's still a place for you. People right now are hiring people off the streets to do this stuff with very little knowledge. They really appreciate when they can get somebody that has some survey skill or knowledge and what's entailed in doing this type of work.
Excellent. Yeah, so just to reiterate on the math thing, Troy mentioned, you know, we don't actually look for a particular academic course requirement when you're applying for survey technician, for example, but maybe having that grade 11 academic math background, or at least not being afraid to delve into that kind of math would set you up pretty good for this program, because I think you cover that math in the program anyways, Troy.
We definitely would go to it, but with the understanding is that you probably have some prior knowledge of it. It's okay. We do kind of do a bit of an elementary math piece that would be a refresher. Okay.
Fair enough. And yeah, working outside, being adventurous, you know, loving and appreciating technology. I think the next slide will show some of the tools that a surveyor would use.
Yeah, so I mean, really, it's if I look at that stuff, everyone except for sort of the middle piece, they're outside. The this under surveyors tools, we have it's a total station. There's a person there holding a prism. Basically, that thing will follow you around, so it's robotic. And really, what we're doing is positioning, right? Where we can put stuff in the ground at certain places where we've decided that that's kind of where we think these certain features should go. So you can sort of see that maybe just both to the right of the person sort of standing there's a curb. So probably before that road got created, or that street, the surveyor would have laid out, this is where the curb goes. I would say now this would be kind of like an after build or an as-built survey. They're picking up the curb, or maybe they're going to make some sort of refinements or modifications. So, you know, there isn't really any piece of development that happens in the world that a surveyor isn't involved in. So either in the planning phase, sort of the laying out of infrastructure, or the picking up, or even the monitoring side. So similar sort of in the upper right, we can see this person with the GPS antenna, right? Another pole with the different sort of sensor on it. And in there, the person's basically just picking up, I would say, maybe the edge of this lake, and just down below it, you sort of get a feel for where the person's thumb is, what that graphical interface would be. So information is stored on these data collectors. Like I said, we can put stuff in the ground at certain places. We can pick up features or infrastructure that's already in place. And sort of below that, there's this, it kind of looks like another total station, but basically it's a LiDAR system. And on the right-hand side, you can see the actual physical bridge. And through this laser scanning system, we can create these 3D models, which was sort of the left side, so colorized based on possibly elevation. But basically, that's a computer model versus kind of on the right-hand side, what the actual physical feature is as it stands today. So being able to use that technology to be able to maybe determine, you know, if I had to replace a certain portion of the bridge, if something, you know, monitoring, and is it failing, to be able to kind of make these really precise measurements kind of at the millimeter level, which is what we'd want to pay attention to, obviously, if we're talking about bridges and safeties. And sort of to the left of that, you can see a person who's looking through just a level, and someone holding a rod. So there's two people, kind of a typical survey crew. And in there, what we can do is figure out elevation or height changes. So if we had to do grading on roads or sewer systems, right, drainage systems, we need to make sure that water, sewer, gray water sort of flows in a certain direction. And just above that, there's a lady who's sitting at a computer, sort of operating her it's CAD computer aided drafting. So basically preparing the data to maybe present to someone, kind of similar to what Martha talked about. And just above that, really all that really kind of represents is some data that we got from a drone. And it's really kind of tough to see in behind the sort of the orangey yellowy lines, but ultimately there's a big pile of dirt, and those drones can be used to sort of create volumes of stockpiles. So how much sand, salt, type A type of material, and basically you can equate that to money or stockpiling. So to be able to kind of capture those measurements quickly and efficiently with certain tools. So depending upon the project, they're kind of whatever the pictures are on these slides, they're the tools that the surveyor typically, you know, defaults to kind of do whatever work they need to get done.
Wow, awesome. Yeah, so I really goes back to that point of appreciating technology, because it's pretty sophisticated tools that you're working with.
Well, that's right. Yeah, before it was kind of some sort of, analog system similar to the kind of the one that's below the surveyor's tools that we look through and had to read numbers off of. Now it's all fairly automated, heavy in electronics. And, a lot of these systems, we're kind of at the, we're pushing that $50,000, $100,000 kind of limit, right? So we're in the high-end electronic tools to be able to do our work.
Awesome. Thanks, Troy. Just one quick question. I think you kind of mentioned that. Are there government career options in this industry? I think that's a big yes. Seems like government would make a lot of use of surveying and geomatics engineering.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Loads of opportunity. I would say more so in the private industry. Obviously, there's more private industry than there is government, but absolutely, for sure.
Okay. Well, thanks for that overview. And again, Troy's email is in the chat if you do have any questions about survey technician or geomatics engineering. We're at 11:08, so we're a few minutes over, but that's fine. Thanks for joining us. And I noticed a few people joined us late. So just want to let you know this session is recorded. If you want to email recruitment@nscc.ca and just ask for the link to watch this again if you wanted to catch the first bit of it. Just quickly to wrap up here, I do want to let you know that the Center of Geographic Sciences has a brand new campus housing building there with, I think, 39 or 40 rooms or something like that. So for anybody considering moving to that area, you can apply for a room. nscc.ca/housing is where you get more information. Rooms are limited, so probably applying early would be your best option. And then after that, I think we start a wait list. So this is just a picture of the campus housing at the Center for Geographic Sciences. COGS and our Annapolis Valley campus are connected, so they're sort of like two campuses in one, but the actual campus housing is at the Center of Geographic Sciences in Lawrencetown. So it has 35 rooms. So questions after this, you can send to recruitment@nscc.ca. We also have Troy and Martha and Mark. If you want to be connected to them, you can email us. Again, Mark Hebert was speaking of the GIS technician program. Martha Bostwick was talking about cartography and geovisualization, and then Troy Green was talking about survey technician and geomatics engineering technology. So thank you for joining this webinar. We do have more webinars planned this month and next month, so just check out nscc.ca/webinars. We'll be doing some more program spotlights. We'll be doing some campus spotlights and getting you the information you need about NSCC and our campuses. We also have other sessions on financial aid and how to apply and things like that. So if you just go to that website there, you'll see what's coming up and you can register for those the same way you registered for this one. And again, we're on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So connect with us there just to stay up to date on things that are happening across the college. And that's it. I would like to thank everybody for joining. Please have a great day, and we'll see you soon. And thanks to our faculty members, Mark, Martha, and Troy. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.